Do you remember, I don't know if they had them when you were a kid, but the Dairy Queen that was near my house growing up.
I remember that Dairy Queen.
Had
No, I don't
They
remember
had
that.
Nerds Blizzards.
Sounds awful.
Wow, that doesn't...
It doesn't
Does that
sound
go well?
It doesn't sound that great, but like the vanilla soft serve with like rainbow nerds.
Mm.
Oh man, and it like kind of turns the ice cream like a rainbow color.
A very natural rainbow color.
Yes, yeah. It doesn't sound appealing, but man, it was my favorite Blizzard to get as a kid. And they stopped selling them. They don't do them anymore.
So you'd have to make your own somehow.
I know, but it's not the same.
No, it's not the same as Patty in the back putting it together for you.
$1,000 soft serve machine in my house, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Or you could just buy soft serve and then add the nerds yourself.
Oh, that's smarter.
It's nerd smart.
It is. I should just go into one of those like self-serve frozen yogurt places. Just bring my own nerds.
Welcome to Predator Minute, the podcast that breaks down the 1987 action sci-fi classic Predator 1 minute at a time. I'm John Zabriskie.
And I'm Jeff Glover.
And joining us today is Aaron Zabriskie. Thanks for joining us, Aaron.
Happy to be here, John.
Yeah, good to have you back. Back! We're talking minute 61 of Predator. Minute 61 opens with Dutch looking up into the trees, and it ends with Dutch holding a life support knife and saying, Anna?
Anna? Anna.
Anna? 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 I don't know. He says Anna, she says Anna. Let's call the whole thing off. So, looks like we have a couple different sections here, a really short first part, a long second part. So Jeff, you want to take us from the top?
Yeah, let's do it. So this first little section just carries over from last minute. It's only about 12 seconds or so. And we finish kind of Dutch's thought here. So we had the Spielbergian zoom on his face, right? Last minute. And so now the camera has kind of circled around and is back on him. And he looks up into the trees and has an epiphany and says he's using the trees. And then we get a shot of him walking up the hill away from the camera. And that brings us to the second part of the minute here. So this first little section really just finishes off his epiphany that started in the last minute.
Yeah, and it's nice that the characters are figuring out what's going on relatively quickly in the movie. If this is, or at minute 61, it was just in the mid-40s that their team started being killed, and figuring out just 15 minutes after that, I think, is a nice quick realization for Dutch and the rest of the team.
Yeah, it's really nice in this section of the movie as we're kind of bridging the gap from the middle section to the final face-off we get with Arnold and the Predator. I mentioned this last minute, like stuff just moves. Just like you were saying, like every minute we get a little bit of a revelation. The story moves along, and it really just cooks here. Like it goes beat to beat to beat to beat, just pushing us towards the climax of the film. Yeah.
It's a good reminder, and I made this note, but it's a good reminder that the terrain is very, very rugged where they're filming, and I can't tell if this is Puerto Vallarta or if this is Palenque, because there's a lot of dead leaves on the ground, but it's also very, very green out. So who knows if they're moving those potted ferns and potted jungle trees around just the right place. But it's that reminder that the terrain is very tough, and that the team and the crew, while they're filming, had to go up and down and find the right angles for filming. In the script, the one big difference... Oh, sorry, did you want to talk about that real quick?
Oh, I was just saying, he really has to like climb up that hill to get back up to his homies within the camp, right?
Yeah.
And even, stuff like that on film doesn't look very steep, but you can tell when he's climbing up that he's really like, he almost has to put his hands down and scramble up that little hill.
Yeah. It's hard to like carry a swagger as you like almost double over trying to go up that steep terrain. I think the last thing I was going to say was I like it where the characters in the movie I'm watching are like realizing things. They're smart enough to work things out, and they're not just playing dumb for the sake of the plot and the sake of our entertainment. They're not just running into really stupid fates here, like a traditional horror movie where a lot of people are just clueless about what's going on, or they run up the stairs instead of leaving the house, or they just pick all the wrong choices in a row to lead to their doom.
I always used to get frustrated. Well, I still will get frustrated when I'm watching a movie, and as I'm watching it, just the series of events that have taken place, you're like, this particular character should have figured this thing out, and they don't, right? And you're just like screaming at the screen, like, that you're dumb. Like, why are you making that decision? Like, you should have figured this out. So yeah, like, that's nice. You don't get that at all in this movie. Like, people figure things out in a way that makes sense, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right. And most of them meet their doom just because they're just outwitted by the predator. And because the predator, let's not lie here. The predator cheats. The predator straight up cheats. He's not fighting them on a fair ground.
He's a
fair
camper.
1-versus-1. He's a camper. He turns invisible. Come on, that's like a Goldeneye cheat right there, if there ever was one.
Seriously.
So the second part here, and I think there are three of us. We should do a dramatic reading. So
yes.
I mean, Jeff, you're obviously going to take Dutch on, and then it's between Aaron and I to choose who does Anna, and who takes Dylan's lines. Aaron, what was your preference? You're the guest.
I like to be Anna.
Okay, you like to be Anna. Give a little bit of a nice little twang to her lines. A little bit of, passion, sabor, flavor. All right.
That makes you Dylan.
Dylan!
I think he has the best line in this conversation, or lines. So
he does.
I think you win. Yeah.
Fucking lizard.
Fucking lizard.
Bullshit psych job.
It's dramatic line read time. We need some like special music here. What would be good music here? Because pretty soon we're not going to have any more dramatic line reads. Let's be honest.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll think of something.
It should just have like a 3-second jingle. Dramatic line read.
Dramatic line. I think that's it. It'll just be your.
Just me doing that. Dramatic line read.
There you go.
There it is.
I think we have it.
I just made it.
Just coned a whole new sound drop. Coned to drop. All right. So Dutch, you want to start us off?
Dramatic line read. Yesterday, what did you see?
You're wasting your time.
No more games.
I don't know what it was. It's...
Go on.
It changed colors, like the chameleon. It uses the jungle.
You saying that Blaine and Hawkins were killed by a fucking lizard? That's a bullshit psych job. There's 2 or 3 men out there at the most. Fucking lizard.
What's your name?
Anna.
Shing. Anna. Dramatic line read.
And scene. Wow, well done. Was that our first 3-person dramatic line reading?
Maybe.
Maybe we had Toby on, and maybe he did a 3-person, but that might have been the only other one.
Didn't we have all 3 of us with Eric Deutsch? It's all bullshit.
You set us up. It's all bullshit.
No, that was just you 2.
It was just us.
Yeah. You set us up.
We need to get him back on just so we can do more Arnold. That was great.
Yeah, some more angry Arnold. Yeah, that was beautiful. Thanks, Anna. That was wonderful.
It was. You really sold it.
Yeah, and I totally forgot to color code Anna's last line there. So thanks for saving my bacon.
Yeah, there it is.
Like the chameleon.
The chameleon. So within this conversation here, we get Dylan being the contrarian as usual. Dylan. And we get Dutch has had his epiphany and is now like, no more games, time to figure this shit out. And we get a big sort of somewhat of a reveal here, right?
With, a couple with reveals.
Anna. One is that she speaks English.
Yes.
And has spoken English this whole time.
He somehow shook her and convinced her enough to stop speaking Spanish. Stop fooling with us. Yeah. Time to start speaking English.
I was
going to ask you guys about this.
American tradition.
Yes.
Yelling at the foreigner until they speak English.
Right. Just say it to them louder and more enunciated, and they will understand you.
No more games.
No more games.
I had a question about this because he doesn't seem that. I mean, I guess he does grab her and is like holding her by the shoulders, but he doesn't seem that intimidating. Do you think it's just the earnestness of his stare into her eyes that convinces her to give up the game and spill the beans?
Maybe like previous team members who have interacted with her mostly been aggressive, and even though you're saying like maybe there's the physical aggressiveness here, the verbal is not as, I would say, like interrogative. He's still asking questions, but he's like, I think, doing it a little bit more.
What about the
gently
big knife?
Yeah, the big knife, but that comes out after. It comes out after he says, "What's your name?"
Yeah.
And if that's the point, it's like, well, shoot! I just told you the chameleon line. Now you're gonna gut me. This is not fair.
Right.
You told us what we need to know. It's like a chameleon.
I think that she may have seen in his eyes that he's going to believe her.
Mm-hmm.
Right, he's coming around. It's in the trees. He's starting to accept that it might be something supernatural beyond his understanding, and maybe she sees that and is now willing to share what she knows, because she feels like if she told that to other team members, and Dylan the whole time has been everything she says he calls bullshit on it. So what's the point? But maybe she sees in his eyes that he'll actually listen to her. Maybe.
I will say I've had this experience several times where I've been speaking Spanish to someone, and then at some point in the conversation I realized that they're fluent English speakers.
At that point, do you just naturally flow into English?
Yeah, then it's time to revert back to English, because obviously my English is a lot better than my Spanish. And so
they were just stringing you along.
They're being polite.
Hey, but your Shona is not too shabby either, I'll say. I heard you speaking Shona at that church presentation, and that was very impressive.
Well, thank you. Yeah, no one's ever interrupted my Shona to speak English, because those types of folks just don't speak English all that well. So
right, Shona is the language spoken in Zimbabwe, or one of the languages spoken in Zimbabwe.
Exactly.
Yeah, learn something new every day.
So what do you think about this actual revelation then about her telling the team, well, Dutch first, but obviously the rest of the team is going to be informed, that she's just put it on the table. It's like a chameleon. It's using the jungle. It's changing the colors. What are you picking up if you are hearing this for the first time, watching this for the first time?
Well, if I'm Dutch,
and you are,
and I am, this kind of fits into the narrative, right, of what has happened so far. So, and the way she says this, like she's staring into his eyes, like there's no real reason for her to lie, right? So I think he's taking it at face value, and is just sort of now adding that to this whole sort of story he's trying to put together in his head of my guys are being taken out one at a time. There's this thing I've decided that it's using the tops of the trees and the jungle to run around. And now she's saying that it's using the jungle like camouflage. And on top of that, his other team members have been spooked by this thing, in particular, Mac.
Mac.
So he's trying to formulate kind of an idea of what's happening in his head. And I think her response just reinforces it. And so I don't know about his psyche as a team leader, but I think this is just part of the transformation towards him, accepting what's happening.
And I like him continuing the tradition of showing leadership traits here. He is reaching out to a prisoner, not just in speaking, but also asking her name. It's really starting to humanize this character who is just a nameless prisoner up to this point, but now we're catching a lot more details about her own personality. And like you said, we've seen it change the colors like the chameleon.
Yeah.
So, well, have we seen it change the colors? Yeah, I guess we saw it decloak. So it became from camouflage to decloaked when it was doing the whole doctor scene on the branch. Right. And Aaron, you were there to talk about that.
And we got the glowing eyes, that scene.
Yeah. So like, what reason does she have to lie? And we know that she's not lying now, right, because we saw the same exact thing. So yeah, it puts her at a more trustworthy level with the team.
Yeah, we're in an interesting position as an audience member because we know more than all the team members,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because we've seen the Predator up in the trees. We've gotten a shot of what he looks like, and we have seen that he can cloak and decloak. So we know more. So it's like it adds to the suspense of the film, right? Because we're waiting for the characters to catch up to us.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like that structure. I like that design where they give the audience more than the characters have.
Yeah.
So part of that suspense is you waiting for them to catch up to you, and wondering how that's going to happen. Like, it's really smart, I think.
Yeah. It's like they all have a piece, kind of like the three blind men trying to figure out what the elephant is in the room. They're like, well, this feels like a tree. This feels like... You know that one? They're like, yeah, they're feeling the different parts of the elephant, and they're trying to figure out, like, well, it's all these different things, but it's not. It's actually altogether an elephant. So they felt the Predator. Like, what would the Predator feel like? Do you ever wonder that? What would the Predator feel like?
Wow, I'm still stuck on three blind men feeling each other in a room.
Feeling an elephant.
No, they're feeling an elephant. You don't know that one?
Jeff is not familiar with some of the finer philosophical lessons of our time.
Oh my god.
Smells like an elephant.
Feels like that too. Wait, these aren't pillows.
Oh, that's a good movie.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, just more ball handling than Larry Bird. Okay. I like Dylan talking about how she must be talking about some kind of lizard, when in fact the original Predator design, as we know, looks kind of like some combination of lizard and insect.
Yeah. I caught that too. Although she's talking about a lizard as in like being a chameleon, but I like that. I do like that connection there. Yeah.
I think it's interesting that Anna becomes a more trusted member of the team at this point than I think Dylan does briefly here.
Yeah, you're right. She's starting to like pass him up.
Yeah, and in fact, like when Dutch and Anna are talking, like they totally tune out Dylan. He's there talking to the side, but neither of them paying him any attention.
You're right. They totally ignore him. He's in the background, like, you're wasting your time. It's like your annoying mother-in-law that's just like talking in the background. Ignore
okay, we're just gonna have this conversation.
We should send her a link.
Let's see. Anything else that we have from this minute? I put a little picture of the original Predator design in the notes today, and I can post this. Maybe I'll post this as the podcast minute picture, so that when you download the episode, it's the picture. It's Dylan with the arm ripped off and the lizard costume in front of him.
That is the original lizard costume?
Yeah, so you have to. Yeah, it is. So you have to think that when they film these lines, perhaps a lot of it was in order, and he's dying later, right, in the movie. So maybe he released those, or he said these lines, and in fact it does end up looking like a lizard, and maybe that was supposed to click. I don't know.
You gotta post that to the Palapa so people can see it, because that's super interesting. I never had actually seen a shot of what that original costume looked like.
Yeah.
Well, that's one of them, right? The other main costume that probably got used more was the all red suit.
Right, which was the red suit, and the red suit is made to match this, with the eyes kind of like wobbly on the top. It's what a funny costume! I love it.
It is, like, I can see why they just discarded it. Like, from the neck down, it doesn't look that bad. Like, it's kind of a cool design, but that head does not quite match the rest of the. It looks like I don't know, like a weird like rat/ant head, like slapped onto that body. It doesn't quite look right.
Yeah, is that Jean-Claude in that outfit? Do you know?
Yeah, it must be.
It's gotta
And
be,
I
right?
think that you said from the waist down, it looks okay. Whenever you see it move, it looks terrible.
Really?
It looks the
Well,
whole
John
head just
Todd is
flops.
standing on these like 2-foot stilts.
Hmm.
Oh,
And so you have this like incredibly athletic dude, but like who's trying to walk on this like incredibly poorly balanced thing. It looks like he's been drinking or something. It's just terrible.
He looks like a really wobbly mascot where the whole body turns and the head follows like a little bit after. It is so funny to see. It's like, yeah, you would not be able to take that seriously.
we'll have to get him on a basketball court with a trampoline and see what he can do. Oh man,
Probably hilarious. I love watching those mascot videos of them like falling down the stairs
yeah, I
and
know.
launching. Oh. All right, I'm gonna post that right now in the listeners' plappa. Stay tuned for Predator Minute 61. All right, post the picture.
Hey, what did you guys think of the fog that they really laid on thick in this scene?
oh yeah, they do. It's like smoke machine-esque. Like you can see it.
Yeah,
rolling
yeah.
behind them.
Well, that's obviously what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny when they do that in movies because it's on the one hand it's so fake. Like when you're out and about, you never see like fog move like that, right? Like if you were to see that much smoke moving, you'd be like, "What's burning?" But at the same time, like it never. It's funny to me, but it never bothers me. Like they do it so much in horror movies. Maybe that's why I'm just like assimilated to it. But like I just watched The Evil Dead again recently, and there's so much like dry ice smoke in that movie. It's insane. But it does kind of give off like a certain atmosphere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like it's kind of like visual shorthand for a mystery is afoot or not everything is wholly revealed yet.
Sure.
Yeah. What about you, Aaron? What were you thinking with the fog? What came to mind?
I don't like it. That's all.
It's rough. It gets everywhere.
It takes me out of the jungle a little bit,
Yeah.
which is not what it's supposed to do. But
Right.
I think that John, maybe you can relate to this. You know, if you spent a little bit of time in an environment like that, when I see it in a movie, I really like to see a faithful representation of it.
Mm.
And so that's often what I'll be looking at when I see a movie that has a setting that looks really familiar to me, somewhere that a place that I would know.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they do something that doesn't seem right, it kind of takes me out of it. But I think most people it probably doesn't bother. It's just
How would you have shown it differently? Just a quick.
Gotten rid of it. That's it.
Okay, got rid of it.
That's it. I'm just saying, so one of the things that we talked about in earlier minutes is the fact that part of the jungle warfare in this movie is kind of trying to evoke very recent memories of Vietnam War, both real footage and movies that had come out at that time. And in those movies, they don't put in fog machines and and stuff like that. And so, and those movies are obviously meant to try to put you in that, make you feel like you're in that environment. And if they're going for the same thing here, then I would say it kind of bothers me. But as you say, it's kind of a nice set piece that sort of directs the audience in terms of seeing that there's something mysterious and hidden going on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can buy that too. So
It's also morning. Keep that in mind. The last minute, they told us it's morning with like the animal sounds waking everybody up, maybe, but also the jungle wide shot showed a lot of fog over the forest.
Yeah. It's just exaggerated. Like I can think of like wake up early in the morning, like if you're camping or something, right? And you go outside and the sun's coming up and it's warming up like the dew on the leaves. And you do see like you'll see just a little, evaporation happening.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so, overly exaggerated here with like the dry ice smoke billowing behind it.
Yeah, I guess that is a lot.
But I wonder if there's a practical reason there too, where it kind of masks the background a little bit. Maybe they were in a part of the jungle that was more sparse. And so by doing this, it kind of fills in the background and makes it look less sparse.
Sure. And maybe more claustrophobic, more tucked in.
Just a thought.
Just all right.
Yeah.
I like it. So do you want to talk script difference and John McTee commentary?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So in the John McTiernan commentary, he's continuing on about everybody having terrible, terrible diarrhea from all the food. He was saying that Arnold specifically was losing weight as the movie goes on. You can see it on the screen, but not from sickness, at least probably after the first couple of times of being sick. But he's just stopped eating, and I'm not really sure what that looks like on a movie set, how you could possibly stop eating for months at a time. Maybe he was just sneaking in some Snickers bars like Ken Caminiti back in the day. But since filming in Mexico that first time, McTiernan learned that you just, as a crew, need to take over a restaurant while you're filming in a location, so you have control over all the food. He says that middle-class people in Mexico don't really suffer the Montezuma's revenge. It's mainly the tourists who are suffering it from poor-grade food that's served to them. Aaron, you and I have been to Mexico a few times together. Did we ever, or you ever, or I ever have Montezuma's revenge? Do you remember?
No, I've never had it.
Yeah. I couldn't remember ever having it.
I have had it. I'll tell you about it if you want to hear.
What was the year? The year was
2008.
Huh.
I was 28 years old, and I was in Honduras. My wife and I it was before we had kids, we were kind of traveling around Honduras for 2 weeks.
My wife.
Just kind of doing like we each had a backpack, and we had a rough idea of where we wanted to travel, and we were taking buses and doing this and that, and it was really fun. But you end up stopping and just eating a lot of kind of local food at like food stands, and a lot of street food. Just guys like barbecuing meat on a stick over a grill. Yeah, about halfway through our trip, I woke up in the morning and yeah. it happened.
Oh man.
Yeah.
And just kept happening.
And it kept happening for about 3 days.
The wrongs
after that.
Exactly. Sorry we stole your gold.
Yeah.
Montezuma.
Sorry, Montezuma. The worst part about it was like I woke up and had kind of a rough morning there in the bathroom, and we had to travel to our next destination that day, and it was about 100 degrees out. And we jumped on like the $5 chicken bus, and I was in a hot
oh my god
chicken bus for about 6 hours, traveling to our next destination.
Oh man!
Like, there's no bathroom stops. There's there's no bathroom on the bus, of course.
No.
And so not only do I have the shits, but I'm hungover, and my wife is also hungover. And at one point, my wife threw up on the bus.
Oh my god!
And she just barfed on the seat. And we just got up and moved to another seat.
Oh no!
And no one even noticed.
Just keep going.
Yeah. But I made it. I survived. I did not poop my pants. That was my goal for the day. Don't poop your pants.
Don't poop your pants. Oh man, I had a Montezuma's revenge, but not from Mexico. It was from China. So whose revenge would that be? I don't know. That would be the General's revenge.
General Tso's revenge.
We were there for I think a week. I was there with Sarah and her parents, and we were doing the student teacher trip, and we had all of 6 students with us. So it was a lovely trip. We saw a lot of awesome things. And then the last night we were there, we were just told every day, don't drink the water out of the tap. Don't drink the water out of the tap. I was like, great, I'm not going to do it. Not going to do it. And so the last night we're there, I'm in the hotel hot tub, and I'm wrapping up. I'm all done, about to go to the room. I'm so thirsty. I'm like, it can't hurt to drink out of the tap, right? So I fill up a glass, drink the water out of the tap, fill up probably 3 or 4 other glasses of water from the tap and drink it. I'm like, that's fine. I don't know what the big deal is. The plane ride home in the morning, I just start feeling it, and it carries on through that day and the next day. And it was just running from one place to the next, but
It was like eating a bunch of Chipotle peppers.
it was like eating a bunch of Chipotle peppers, which I did earlier tonight, and I have been suffering the Montezuma's revenge. It was like more like Zabriskie's revenge. Oh,
Ooh.
Lord.
Chipotle's revenge.
Yeah. Aaron, do you have a story?
Gross.
Tell us your
Come
poop,
on.
tell us your poop story, Aaron.
That's disgusting. You're so lowbrow. This one time I was in South Africa.
Okay, sorry. Carry on.
My wife was telling me that we should go to this really fancy restaurant that was nearby. And so I was saving it for a time when we had a childcare for our daughter who was with us.
Yeah.
And so we did. And I went not realizing until we got there that it was a buffet night, which they don't normally have. I was like, ooh, African buffet. I don't know about that. But what are you going to do? That was our big night to go there together.
Right.
So I think I woke up at about like 11 p.m. that night.
11 p.m.
Yeah.
Hey.
Hey-o. I sweated through my shirt. I was not feeling well. And then I spent the next 4 hours just puking my guts up.
Oh,
And my wife came
no.
in, and I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I woke you up, honey." I thought maybe she was gonna offer me some moral support or something. She told me to shut up so I didn't wake up the baby.
So don't eat the African buffet if you're not from Africa. I think is the lesson
I
there.
had been living in Africa for over a year at that point, and yet I still
Right. So what?
would not
Yeah.
recommend it, even to people who live there.
Could you pinpoint the culprit of that night? Do you think?
No, it was. It was a bad idea. I don't know what I was thinking. I think what I was thinking was it was fairly expensive. It was over
Right.
$50 per person, and so
Holy cow.
yeah, and so I was feeling like I had to get my money's worth. That was probably the big mistake.
Yeah. If there's something you need to know about Aaron, it's like buffet means like you're going to go back whether you're full or not.
3 trips.
We're getting it.
minimum.
Yeah.
Well, it's $50. Goodness,
$50 for a buffet
in Africa.
In Africa,
No, that's like a
that's
Vegas.
like $1,000.
Like a Vegas.
Meant that I wasn't going to be paying for any meals for quite some time afterwards.
Clearly.
And I didn't know that it was because I couldn't hold anything down for the next.
Right.
I thought I just had to eat just because that was going to be the only meal.
Oh man.
Oh my god.
Oh, good stories, everybody.
They call
Wow.
that- They call that the African crash diet. Just go to the buffet and then lose 10 pounds afterwards.
Oh man.
Ooh.
Oh, well, thank you all for sharing your disgusting stories. That was great. It's really.
You're welcome, listeners.
The last thing minute-based I'll leave everybody with is this is where I was talking about earlier. This is where the script really takes a weird turn. It turns into like a pure 80s action movie for about 7 pages, if you'll believe, of the script. Whereas originally, the team is just instead of Dutch going to Anna and starting to talk to her, the team is just kind of making their way to the extraction point, and in so doing, they're having to walk along a really steep river gorge, and all of a sudden the ground gives way and it falls, and the team falls into like this massive vines just way below, and Dylan's knocked out for a little bit. Panchito breaks his ankle. Dylan comes back into consciousness while dangling over this river, and then Mac and Billy have to pull them out of this dangling situation, which is hilariously put in this original script. I don't have no idea what it's doing there, because it doesn't make sense to me to have these characters in such mortal danger and then to save them just to kill them off later.
It is a little out of place, isn't it?
It's so weird. I put a couple of the script pages in today's notes, and you can see how it just goes way into the vines, as it were.
Yeah, you mentioned this, and so I read through those script pages, and it feels very out of place. It's almost like, I wonder if the original writers were thinking like, well, we haven't had like an action sequence in a while since that guerrilla camp raid, really. So
Sure.
maybe we'll just throw this one in here before the rest of the team dies, and it's just Arnold and the Predator. But I can only imagine if they had put that in there, it would have felt so forced.
Yeah.
And it would feel like just action for the sake of having action, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It's a whole thing. Yeah, they like fall down this cliff, but it has nothing to do with the Predator. Like there's nothing in here. Yeah, it's just them like slipping and falling, and then, oh, I got to save you off this cliff. Yeah, it really doesn't do anything to drive the story forward.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think it was a good edit for sure.
Yeah, definitely good, big, healthy edit right there. It's not like the Predator made this as a trap and then it was going to go clean up afterwards and claim those bodies. It was just bodies. It was just a total accident, like a freak accident in nature, and the whole team could have wiped out right then. Oh, it's just so kooky how these edits work and how we're like saved from a lot of extra unnecessary things. And
it does bother me in movies when they do that. Like I can think of other action movies where they just, it's like when in a movie like someone's walking through the woods and we get the unnecessary jump scare of like a branch falling in front of them, or a snake dropping down from the branch or something. And it's like it's so clearly just a scare just to have a scare. And I don't know, those types of things always kind of bother me because I'm like, trim the fat. Like you don't need that in there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, have we done it? Do we have anything else to add on this minute? Any more poop stories?
I know I've done it, so to speak. So Aaron, what about you?
I've pooped twice since we started.
Wow, Zabriskie style. I like it. Just totally economizing your time.
Just comfortable. Yeah. Are you taking a
bath now?
Have
a limited amount of time in the day. You gotta really economize here.
Yeah. What are you going to do with all that extra time, right? I know what you should do with that extra time. You should recommend to the audience, Aaron, something that you've seen or listened to lately, or I don't know, not eaten.
I was going to say I should go spend some time with my children, but this sounds better, actually. Now that you mention it. Sounds way better.
So did you have like a weekly recommend for the audience?
Come back to me. I'm working on one.
Okay. We'll circle back to Aaron. What about you, Jeff? What are you going to recommend this week?
Well, I'm going to kind of piggyback off a recommend from several episodes ago. I mentioned a ways back that I had bought a Nintendo Switch earlier.
Oh, yeah, you did.
I did. And I put it off for a while because I knew that it was going to take over my spare time. But I did finally purchase Breath of the Wild. And I've started playing it, and I know I'm behind the curve on this one because everyone else knows how incredible this game is, but you guys,
so good.
Did you know that Breath of the Wild is really incredible?
I did.
It is so fucking good. Pardon my language. Like, it is amazing. The more I play it, I'm just, the only word for it is I'm amazed by it. I can't think of a better word than it is literally and truly amazing. The scope of the map, the scope of the game, how every corner and inch of that map is thought out, and there's something to find everywhere. There's no like dead space, and just the way that you can kind of go about the game in any order that you really want to is kind of groundbreaking. It's amazing. So that's my recommend. If you are like me and put off playing Breath of the Wild, start playing it because it is so good.
So good. I love that game. I still will pick it up and play a little bit of it. Just even after having beaten it a couple of times. It was the killer app for me. Meaning like it was the game I just needed to buy the console for, which I did, and I was really, really happy I did.
I hear they have another one in the works, too.
Yeah, they have another one in the works. I haven't heard the release date because I might have read an article or two and already forgotten, but I can't imagine it coming out before 2022 because of the amount of work it takes to put such a huge world together.
Fathom the amount of work, but I've been, all my extra time that I would normally be watching shows or movies, I've been playing that game, so that's the only recommend I have this week.
Cool. Yeah. All right, fellow gamer.
I just finished watching this set of 3 movies that I really enjoyed, but I also have found that I've been spending a lot of time thinking about the movies. more than I expected, because they're largely sort of action driven. They're all written by this guy, Taylor Sheridan. He wrote what he called his trilogy of the frontier. You guys have probably seen at least one of these movies. The first one was this movie Sicario, about the drug war down on the border.
Yeah.
And the next one was this movie about bank robbers in Texas called Hell or High Water. And the last one was this movie about this murder mystery on an Indian reservation in Wyoming called Wind River. And they were all good movies, and they all, I think, are similar to. They remind me a lot of a writer named Cormac McCarthy, who has written a bunch of things. But the one people are probably most familiar with is a book that became the movie, No Country for Old Men, and it's very much. Those movies are all very much in that vein. And honestly, some of the movies, like Wind River comes to mind, parts of it are very uncomfortable, and I actually didn't necessarily like it that much in a lot of parts. But as taking the three movies together, they're all very well made, and it certainly has made me think a lot about what this guy Taylor Sheridan is calling the modern frontier of America. It's been very interesting. So if you'd like to think about that kind of thing, and if you'd like to spend some time contemplating about modern America and why it is the way it is, those are three very good movies for that.
Yeah, good recommend. I love all three of those movies, but man, To Hell or High Water is one of my favorite movies that's come out in the last few years.
Of those three, that's my favorite.
And it was so good, and it was nominated for Best Picture, and anyone that would listen to me, I would tell them that's the movie that should have won Best Picture. I love that.
I never saw that one. I saw the other two, and yeah, if it's anything like the other two, and you're all claiming it's like your favorite out of those three, then yeah, I have to check it out.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah, it's this really good mix of action and kind of a heist and drama, and
I also like the fact that it's actually a little less brutal than those other two movies. I feel like Sicario and Wind River, they kind of turned up the brutality in several scenes, and and Hell or High Water is not nearly as brutal. Absolutely, it's just a lot of good acting, good story, and very well made.
Yeah, John, I think you'd really like it. I think it's up your alley. You should check it out.
Okay. Yeah, I like a good heist movie.
Yeah.
Now and again, and in that vein, kind of like blending some genres. It sounds like.
Sure. Yeah, and it's like I said, there's a lot to think about with those movies, especially when you take them all three together, which in theory is sort of what the writer wanted you to do, which is interesting because Sicario has its own sequel, and those other movies probably are sort of more closely linked to yet other movies by other writers and directors. But those three he specifically wrote to sort of form a coherent narrative between the three.
Good one.
Well, I would not recommend eating chipotle peppers out of the can. It's gonna be terrible diarrhea tonight, so I'm not gonna recommend that. What I'd recommend though is a series of YouTube videos by a YouTuber named Ryan George. His videos actually show up under the Screen Rant YouTube channel. Screen Rant makes all sorts of like movie related news items and did you knows and trivia things that I don't really care about, but his series, it's called Pitch Meetings, and the tagline is super easy, barely an inconvenience. The setup is that it's just him delivering a pitch meeting for a movie to him as well. And it just goes back and forth between these talking heads where there's like the glasses bearing Ryan George as the screenwriter telling the movie executive Ryan George about a movie idea, and Ryan George, the movie executive, tends to talk through the plot and like pick apart the movies, but the way they go back and forth is really, really funny. So if you're someone who is like me and you watched a few CinemaSins videos and you said, well, there has to be a better way to do this, I would say check out the pitch meetings with Ryan George under the Screen Rant channel. It's really well done, and they pick apart all sorts of movies, like some good, some bad, mostly kind of pop culture, popular movies, but also things from way back when. You have like a Wizard of Oz, Pitch Meeting, and other particularly well-known movies. So I would check that out. Pitch Meeting.
Nice.
Yeah.
I will have to check that out.
Yeah. So now's the time of the show where we talk about where we can find the guest, the co-host, the podcast itself. Aaron, you're the guest. Where can people find you?
Can't find me. Quit trying.
It's in your closet with a microphone.
Could be in your closet right behind you. Right behind
Could be
you.
raiding your sock drawers right now.
Oh no.
Looking for those size 13s.
Someone's birthday's coming up. You better find those size 13s. Heck yeah. All right. So, Jeff, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter, Carl_Hungus314. I'm here to fix the cable.
Hello, meine dispatcher says there's something wrong with deine Kabel.
All right. And what are you tweeting about lately here, Jeff?
Well,
Let's pull up your latest tweet. Something really embarrassing.
Probably. I haven't been tweeting that much lately. I think my last tweet was about watching the Steelers losing to the Dolphins for a while, but then the Steelers ended up coming back and winning. But I was really sad. As a Seahawks fan, I have a deep-seated hatred for the Steelers, so it was fun to watch them lose to the Dolphins for a little while because the Dolphins were so miserably bad. But yeah, that's about it. I've been light on the tweeting lately. I tend to lurk on Twitter a lot, and there was a Joe Bob marathon recently on Shudder, and so I was on Twitter a lot for that, kind of watching people live tweet as we watched Halloween movies. But yeah, I'm in and out. I come and I go. Yeah.
All right. Well, hopefully you're tweeting up a storm later on, and we can all check in on what you're doing, what you're watching, what you're thinking.
What I'm doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, where can we find Predator Minute on the interwebs?
Predator Minute can be found on Twitter as well, at Predator Minute. You can email the show, predatorminute@gmail.com, and you can join the Facebook conversation at the Predator Minute Listeners Palapa. And a lot more activity going on these days, which I really, really love. My favorite latest post is from Chris Dylan Nonis. Dylan! There's a couple people dressed in Predator attire. One person's dressed up as the Predator, and the other one is dressed up as other person's dressed up in the thermal vision, what someone would look like, with like the red, the orange, the yellow, the blue.
Yeah, he's like a human in thermal vision. Yeah.
And the thing I made a joke about is I said, "What's with that red part downstairs, though?" And like, there's clearly like this red line going across
just
this guy's
big old
pelvis,
red
just
rod. Yeah,
right down to the groin from the upper leg. And I'm like, what is going on there?
Well, that was my comment. He's just happy to see you.
Yeah. And Chris mentioned it's probably a tapeworm. It's not a tapeworm.
It's not a tapeworm. Yeah, great. Keep them coming, you guys. Love those posts. Love those pictures.
Yeah. Especially during the holiday season where people are spending a little bit more time at home. Throw some, spend some time, some quality time with your Predator Minute family.
Mm-hmm.
Every minute is precious. Every second is precious.
Every Predator Minute is precious.
Hey. Every Predator Minute is precious. Well stated, co-host Jeff. Clap, clap, clap. Stand up. Round of applause. And we are wrapping up the minute. So for Predator Minute, I've been John Zabriskie.
And I'm Jeff Glover.
This has been Dr. Zabriskie.
Ooh. And until next time,
stick around.
Stick around. Yesterday, what did you see? You're wasting your time. No more games.
I don't know what it was.
Go on.
It changed colors. Like the chameleon. It uses the jungle.
You saying that Blaine and Hawkins were killed by a fucking lizard? It's a bullshit psych job. There's 2 or 3 men out there at the most. Fucking lizard. What's your name?
Anna.